Hey everyone, welcome back to English Naturally, where you learn English by listening to real, understandable content. If you understand around 70%, that's perfect. And if you need help, subtitles are there. So one day a while back, I remember standing in a backyard in Duisburg, Germany, asking someone, "So, where are you from?" And they said, "Duisburg." And that was the end of the conversation. This wasn't the first time a conversation ended like this, and it's just one of the things I wish I would have known before moving to Germany. These unwritten rules of small talk. Today, I want to talk about 4 things I wish I would have known before moving to Germany, and it would have made my life a lot easier. Let's get started. So, one of the first things I wish I had known before moving to Germany is that Germany is what you would call a coconut culture. Let me explain that a little bit. There's a theory from social psychology that basically says there are 2 main types of cultures in the world: peach cultures and coconut cultures. So let's start with the peach. A peach is soft on the outside, right? It's warm, it's easy to get into, it's approachable. And if you apply that to cultures, what that means is you go somewhere and people are immediately friendly, they're outgoing, they're talkative. And this, by the way, is exactly the experience a lot of Germans have when they go to the United States. They always say, "Wow, Americans are so friendly. Everyone talks to you. People are so open." That's classic peach culture. And actually, what's interesting is you can even go one level further. From what I've heard, people from South America often feel that Americans are not that open, because South American cultures are even more peach than the United States. So this is all relative. Now, on the other side, you have the coconut. And if you think about a coconut, it makes the idea very clear. It's hard on the outside. It's rough. It takes effort to break through that outer layer. But once you get inside, it's soft, it's warm, it's actually very, very good. And that's exactly how coconut cultures work. And Germany is a really good example of this. Because when you first arrive, it's not like people are immediately engaging you in conversation. There's no automatic small talk, no instant friendliness in that same way. And if you don't understand that, it can feel a bit strange. You might think, why is this so difficult? Why is no one talking to me? In fact, I would say that Americans in particular are quite accommodating with the language. That is, if we notice that English is not someone's first language, we really help them out. We engage them, we will even dumb down our words and grammar structures. And most of all, we will ask them questions and encourage them to speak. I kept waiting for this to happen to me. And I kept waiting until one day I complained to a friend of mine from England who had lived in Germany longer. "Yeah, stop waiting," he said. "It's not going to happen." Which was great advice. Instead of waiting for the Germans to engage me, I started telling my stories and opinions, regardless if they asked for it or not. Because once you get past that outer layer, relationships are often very real, very stable, and very meaningful. Now, here's something I've always found interesting about the coconut culture analogy. A lot of Germans, honestly, I would say a huge percentage, have some kind of negative story about going to France. You hear things like, people were rude, they didn't want to speak English, it wasn't friendly. And for a while, I actually hesitated to go to France because I had heard this so often. But when I went, I had a completely different experience. And I think the reason might actually be this cultural difference, because France is also considered a coconut culture. So what's happening is kind of interesting. Germans go to the US and think, "Wow, this is incredibly friendly." Then they go to France and think, "Wow, this is really unfriendly." But in reality, they're just reacting to different positions on that same spectrum. And this is exactly what a lot of people experience when they come to Germany. And that brings me directly to the next point, small talk. So let's talk about small talk. This is honestly something I really wish I had known earlier. Small talk rules are different because this was the school of hard knocks for me. I had to figure this out completely on my own. And for years, small talk was just awkward. Small talk is often awkward, and a lot of people don't like to do it. In fact, some Germans are openly hostile to it. But this is not what I'm talking about. Now, part of the difficulty, of course, is language level. If your German isn't strong, everything is harder. But even beyond that, just understanding the rules would have helped so much. And the key word here is rules. Because these are not written down anywhere. No one explains this to you. These are just unspoken cultural rules. So let's compare this to the US for a second. In America, a lot of small talk conversations start with something like, "Where are you from?" Right? And then the other person says, "Oh, I'm from Chicago." And immediately the conversation has somewhere to go. Maybe you've been to Chicago. Maybe you know something about it. Maybe you start talking about travel experiences, stories, or the sports teams or universities there. Always a great bridge into conversation. The point is, the conversation is very often built around personal information. You share something about yourself, the other person shares something about themselves, and that's how the conversation grows. Now, in Germany, it doesn't really work like that. And this confused me for a long time because I just used the rules I already knew. So I would go up to someone at a party and say, "So where are you from?" And I remember situations like this very clearly. You're standing somewhere, maybe in a backyard in Duisburg, and the person responds, "I'm from Duisburg." And then that's it, conversation over. And you're standing there thinking, okay, now what? And what I eventually realized is this: people are not necessarily interested in sharing personal details right away. That's not the starting point. And again, no one told me this. I had to figure it out slowly. What does work, interestingly, is something quite different. Small talk often starts from a shared situation or a shared fact. So instead of talking about yourself, you talk about something that is externally visible, something both people can observe. For example, you're sitting outside, you see a bird, and that becomes the conversation. Not, "Where are you from?" but, "Oh, that's an interesting bird." And then you go from there. Maybe something like, "Yes, I think that's a blue jay." And there begins the exchange of facts. For example, you could discuss the mating season of blue jays, or discuss migratory patterns, or with what material they build their nests, etc. And yes, it is helpful to know a lot of these random facts because, as you may now realize, these facts are fuel for conversations and a way to avoid awkward silences. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but only a little bit. And once you understand the pattern, it actually makes sense. The conversation is based on something neutral, something shared, something objective. And from there, it can slowly develop further. So yeah, my advice would be, if you're in Germany and you want to make small talk, don't immediately jump into personal questions. Do feel free, however, to jump right into messy political discussions or current events. Climate change is always a good go-to. Plenty of issues to talk about. You won't run out of conversation material for a long while. You can even branch into discussions of how are electric vehicles really environmentally friendly, considering the fossil fuels used to manufacture them? Let me know in the comments your observations. Have you noticed any different rules of small talk between different countries? I would love to hear them. All right, moving on. Here's the third thing I wish I had known before moving to Germany. Germans are much more formal than Americans. And just to be clear, because this is important, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying there are differences. And actually, I only really understood this recently when I went back to the United States for a visit. Because suddenly I experienced it the other way around. And the level of informality in the US actually surprised me. So let me give you a concrete example. We were invited to a dinner at someone's house. And already from the beginning, things felt different. For starters, there wasn't really a fixed time. There was more like a general idea of when people would arrive. And when we got there, people weren't all there yet. Some were still outside, working in the yard. Others were inside, doing different things. People just kind of filtered in. They said hello when they saw you. They moved around the house. They sat where they wanted. They joined whatever conversation they felt like joining. There wasn't really a central moment where everyone came together. It was all very relaxed, very informal, very American. And what struck me was this. I had gotten so used to life in Germany that this suddenly felt unusual. Because in Germany, even in private, relaxed situations, there's often more structure. If you're invited to dinner, you're expected to be on time. Punctuality matters. And I remember situations where we were late. Not even extremely late, maybe an hour or so, and that was not okay. Because people plan around that time. They think about when the food should be ready, when everything should be served, how the evening should begin. There's a logic to it. And then there's also kind of structure to the evening itself. You arrive, people gather, maybe there's an aperitif, maybe there's a moment where everyone sits down together. It feels a bit more intentional, a bit more organized, almost a bit more ceremonious. And what's interesting is, when I was younger, I think I would have preferred the American version. It's more relaxed, it's more spontaneous, but now I'm not so sure. Because there's something about that structure in Germany that makes you feel like, okay, this moment matters. We planned this. This is something we're doing together. So yeah, that's something I wish I had understood earlier. That this level of formality, even in private life, is just part of the culture. And once you understand it, you can actually start to appreciate it. All right, here's the fourth thing I wish I had known before moving to Germany. I wish I had joined a Verein much sooner. Now, if you don't know what a Verein is, it basically translates to a club. And in Germany, there are clubs for almost everything, which can be both good and bad. Let me start with the bad, or at least what I thought was bad at the time. We once wanted to train our dachshund, get him to bark a little less, be a bit less aggressive. So we went to a dog trainer. But of course, it wasn't just a dog trainer, it was part of a club. And this is something I didn't understand at the time. In Germany, you often can't just show up, do your one thing and leave. It doesn't really work like that. There's always this social layer around it. So suddenly it's not just train the dog and go home. It's meet the other people, talk to them, spend time there, be part of the group. And then maybe you meet again outside of training, or you stay longer than expected, or you become part of this ongoing community. And at the time, I honestly had no interest in that. I just wanted my dog to bark less. That was it. But here's the thing. If my goal had been to build a social life, to integrate, to really feel part of things in Germany, then this would have been the perfect opportunity. And I didn't see it. Now, fast forward, today I play in a basketball club. And this is where I really understood what a Verein actually is. Because first of all, yes, I like basketball. But in Germany, you don't really do things half-heartedly. You either do it properly or not at all. So this is not like casual pickup basketball, or even like adult recreational basketball in America where you play maybe 10 or 12 games, and that's really it, nothing on the side. No, in Germany, it's incredibly well structured. You have a coach, you have regular training, of course you have games that are very well regulated and monitored, you have referees, you have leagues, and you can move up or down in these different leagues depending on how well you perform. And of course, it's all very well organized. But that's not even the most important part. The most important part is this. You're not just joining a sport, you're joining a community. There are different teams, men's teams, women's teams. There are events, gatherings, shared experiences. And over time, these people become your people. Some of my closest friends are from this club. People that I trust, people that I could call if I needed help moving or needed help with something in my daily life. And on top of that, it's an incredible way to practice the language because you're not just learning German, you're living it. You're using it in real situations with real people in a real context. So yeah, if I could go back and change one thing early on, it would be this. I would join a Verein immediately. Okay, everyone, that's it. The 4 things I wish I would have known before moving to Germany. First of all, that it is a coconut culture and therefore has different rules of small talk, which is closely linked to the formality even in private life, where social occasions are noted and ritualized in a structured manner. Germans do love structure. Finally, I wish I would have joined a Verein sooner, as I could have made friends fast and really improved my German language skills. Before you go, please note, as always, the transcript for this video is available on my website if you want to deepen your understanding. It's a great way to read through everything, check vocabulary, and maybe listen again with more clarity. And if you want to understand this approach more deeply, you can also check out my video on the 7 keys to learning English, where I explain how to learn effectively so that you can actually start speaking more fluently. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.